I said, "You're not a bad guy, just not a man I'd brag about." He said, "Cool," then walked out forever. I'm Vivienne, 32, and that's literally the last thing I said to my husband before he ghosted me like we were casual Tinder matches instead of married for 4 years. Looking back, I probably should have seen it coming. We'd been fighting more and more, but honestly, I was just keeping it real. Caleb was fine. Not terrible, not amazing, just there. Every Sunday, I'd scroll through Instagram seeing Ainsley and her hubby on another yacht weekend, while I'm stuck at home watching Caleb play video games. It wasn't always like this. I mean, when we first met, he had ambition. He was going to start his own business, work his way up, all that stuff guys say to impress you. The night before it all went down, I was at dinner with my girls. Brielle's husband, Greg, had just surprised her with a Range Rover. Not even her birthday, just because. Ainsley's man, Mark, had gotten that promotion, so they were house hunting in that gated community everyone wants to get into. Then there was me, sitting there with nothing exciting to share except that Caleb had finally fixed that leaky faucet after I'd asked for 3 months. "How's Caleb doing at work?" Brielle asked, and I just shrugged. What was I supposed to say? That he was still at the same position he'd been at for years, making the same money with zero prospects of moving up? That we were the only couple in our friend group who hadn't upgraded from our starter home? When I got home that night, Caleb was on the couch watching some documentary instead of working on that side project he'd talked about for years. I opened our banking app, a habit I'd developed lately, compulsively comparing our account balance to what I estimated my friends' husbands made. The numbers stared back at me, so much smaller than what Ainsley's husband brought home, what Brielle's man provided. I'd been keeping track, you know. Not just in my head, but an actual spreadsheet comparing our household income to my friends' couples. Every time someone mentioned a bonus or a promotion or a new purchase, I'd update it. The gap was widening, and it made me sick to my stomach. That night, I didn't say anything. I just added another item to my document, the one labeled Reasons to Leave that I'd started 6 months ago. It was my private way of tracking all the ways Caleb was falling short. Friends' husbands all received promotions or raises this year. Caleb still at same salary level. The list was getting long. The next morning, Caleb was all cheerful, making breakfast like everything was normal. He didn't see me checking my Instagram, looking at Ainsley's husband showing off their beach house renovation. He didn't know I was mentally adding up how much that kitchen probably cost. More than Caleb made in 3 months. "I was thinking we could check out that new hiking trail this weekend," he said, sliding a plate of eggs in front of me. "Weather's supposed to be nice." I looked up at him, at his faded t-shirt he'd had since college, at his dad bod that was getting more dad by the month. And I thought about the guys in my friends' photos. Guys with six-packs who took their wives to Bali instead of hiking trails 20 minutes from home. "Don't you think you should be focusing on that certification you talked about?" I said, pushing the eggs around my plate. "The one that could actually help you get ahead at work?" His smile dropped a little. "I thought we agreed I'd look into that next quarter, when things slow down." "Things never slow down, Caleb. That's just your excuse." I pulled up the photo of Brielle's new Range Rover. Meanwhile, Brielle's husband just surprised her with this. He glanced at my phone, then back to his coffee. Good for them. Don't you get it? Every single one of my friends is living the life we talked about when we got married. The life you promised me. And what do I have to show for sticking with you? What do I have to brag about when we get together? The argument escalated from there. Me listing all the ways he was falling behind. Him getting quieter and quieter until finally, I said those words, the ones I can't take back. "You're not a bad guy, Caleb. You're just not a man I'd brag about." He looked at me for a long moment. His face did this thing where all the emotion just drained out. "Cool," he said. Then he grabbed his keys and walked out. I figured he'd gone to cool off, maybe crash at his brother's place for the night. I even felt a little satisfied, like maybe this would be the wake-up call he needed. I didn't know then that cool would be the last word my husband ever said to me. I didn't know he'd walk out that door and never come back. That night, I updated my reasons to leave document with walks away from problems instead of facing them. I still believed he'd be back. I had no idea what was coming. 3 days after Caleb walked out, I realized he wasn't coming back on his own. The first day, I was annoyed. The second, concerned. By the third, I was furious. Who did he think he was, walking out on me? I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I texted him. No response. I called his brother, who claimed not to know where he was. A lie, I'm sure. I drove to his office, ready to make a scene if necessary, only to find out he'd taken a week of personal leave. His coworker, the only one who would talk to me, said Caleb had mentioned needing space to figure things out. Space from what? From me, the only person actually trying to make our relationship better? Back at home, I went through his closet and realized he'd taken enough clothes for more than just a few days. His passport was gone, too. That's when the panic set in. This wasn't a typical fight where he'd sulk for a day then come home with flowers. This was something else. I called my friends expecting sympathy, but their responses were lukewarm at best. What exactly did you say to him? Sloane asked after I explained the situation. When I told her, there was a long silence on the other end. Don't you think that was a bit harsh? She finally said. I was just being honest, I defended myself. He knows I've had issues with his lack of ambition. This isn't news. There's honest, and then there's cruel, Vivienne, she said quietly. I hung up on her and tried Brielle instead, who at least had the decency to bring over wine. But even she seemed uncomfortable when I showed her my reasons to leave document and upgrades list. I knew you guys were having problems, but... This is a lot, she said, scanning the lists. Does Caleb know about these? He knows about the upgrades list. It's supposed to help him improve. And these income comparisons? Does he know you're tracking how much less he makes than our husbands? I shrugged. He knows I want more for us. Brielle looked at me strangely. For us? Or for you? After a week of no contact, Caleb's brother finally confirmed he was staying with him but wouldn't put Caleb on the phone. He needs time, was all he would say. 2 weeks in, I got an email from Caleb. Not even a call, an email, saying he'd be by to pick up more of his things while I was at work. He'd leave his key after. Like we were roommates whose lease was up, not husband and wife. I took the day off to intercept him, determined to make him talk to me. When he showed up and saw my car in the driveway, he almost left. I had to run outside to stop him. You can't just ghost your wife, I said, blocking his path to his car. Caleb looked tired. More than tired, empty. I'm not ghosting you. I told you I'd be getting my things. Without talking to me? Without trying to work this out? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Work what out, Vivienne? The fact that I'm not enough for you? Never have been, apparently. That's not... I found your documents, he interrupted. The reasons to leave list, the income comparisons, all of it. My stomach dropped. I'd kept those on my password-protected laptop, but I'd left it open the morning of our fight. Those were private, I managed. Yeah, well, so was our marriage, but apparently you've been sharing all my shortcomings with your friends, so I guess we're even. Caleb, you're overreacting. I was just venting. Number. His voice was firm in a way I'd never heard before. You weren't just venting. You were building a case against me while pretending to build a life with me. I was trying to help you reach your potential. My potential according to who? You? He shook his head. I like my job. I was happy with our life. The only thing wrong with it was that it wasn't enough for you. Because I know you could do better. We could have more. That's just it, Vivienne. I don't want more. I want someone who values what we have, who's proud to be with me as I am, not as some project they're trying to upgrade. He stepped around me. I'll come back another day for my things. So that's it? I called after him, my voice cracking. You're just giving up, proving me right that you're not the man I thought you were. He turned back, and for a moment I thought I'd gotten through to him. But then he said, Number, I'm finally being the man I should have been all along, one who knows his worth. Then he got in his car and drove away again. A month passed, then 2. Caleb moved most of his things out while I was at work, as promised. He filed for divorce through his lawyer. We haven't spoken directly since that day in the driveway. I got the papers last week. My friends started pulling away too. Suddenly, I wasn't getting invited to the brunches or the girls' nights. When I confronted Brielle about it, she was surprisingly blunt. The way you treated Caleb made us all uncomfortable, she said. It made us wonder how you talk about us when we're not around. That's ridiculous, I said. I loved Caleb. Did you? Because from what you showed me, it looked like you loved the idea of who you wanted him to become, not who he actually was. I tried to argue, but the truth was, I'd lost my audience. No one wanted to hear me complain about Caleb anymore. No one cared that he'd left me with a mortgage I could barely afford on my own. No one sympathized when I had to sell my designer bag to cover bills. To understand how I got here, I have to go back. I met Caleb 5 years ago at my friend Sloane's housewarming party. I wasn't even planning to go. I had just gotten out of a messy situation with a guy who looked great on paper but turned out to be all talk and married. But Sloane insisted, saying I needed to get back out there. And there was Caleb, fixing Sloane's broken cabinet in the kitchen while everyone else was getting drunk in the living room. He wasn't my usual type. My ex before the married guy was a personal trainer with an Instagram following. And before him, I dated a guy who was trying to make it as a DJ. Caleb was stable, worked some office job he seemed to actually like, owned his car outright, had a retirement account, whatever that meant, at 27. When he asked for my number, I figured, why not? The hot guys had only led to drama. Our first date was nice. Not spectacular, but nice. He took me to a decent restaurant, asked questions about me, laughed at my jokes. When he dropped me off, he didn't push to come inside, just a kiss goodnight. That was sweet enough to make me agree to a second date. By the third month, I was calling him my boyfriend. By month 6, I was introducing him to my friends. He's so normal, Brielle whispered to me at a group dinner, like that was a compliment. And at the time, I took it as one. After the chaos of my past relationships, normal felt good, safe. When he proposed at the 1-year mark, I said yes. My mom cried, said I'd finally found a good one. Our wedding was small but elegant, the most I could manage on our budget, which was mostly Caleb's budget since my job at the salon wasn't exactly bringing in big money. The first year of marriage was pretty good. We moved into a starter home in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but Caleb promised we'd upgrade once he moved up at work. He had this whole 5-year plan mapped out. I believed him. I even made a vision board for our future. The dream house, the luxury vacations, the lifestyle I saw my more successful friends living. But somewhere around year 2, I started noticing things. How Caleb was content to come home, make dinner, and watch television. How he'd pass on networking events because he was tired. How his 5-year plans seemed to be stalling while my friends' husbands were zooming ahead. That's when I started my list. The upgrades Caleb would need to actually become the man I thought I was marrying. Things like get certified in project management, join a gym, network with executives, develop a side hustle. I presented it to him as a growth plan. I'm just trying to help you reach your potential, I told him, showing him the neatly typed list one Sunday morning. These are the things that will get you to the next level. Caleb looked at the list for a long time. This is comprehensive, he finally said. I've been thinking about our future, I explained. All these things are what separates the guys who stay stuck in middle management from the ones who actually succeed. I thought I was succeeding, he said quietly. I like my job. We have a nice home. We're not struggling. We're not thriving either, I pointed out. Look at Ainsley and Mark. They just bought that vacation property. Or Brielle and Greg with their luxury car collection. That could be us if you'd just push yourself a little. He agreed to work on the list, but his heart wasn't in it. He'd check off one item, like joining the gym, but then slack on others. Meanwhile, I started my spreadsheet comparing our household income to my friends. The gap kept widening. By year 3, I was spending more time with my friends who were living the life I wanted and less time at home with Caleb. Why waste an evening watching him play video games when I could be at Ainsley's new pool house, imagining what it would be like if Caleb had her husband's ambition? I started posting more on Instagram, 2 carefully angled photos that made our modest life look more impressive than it was. Perception is reality, I told Caleb when he questioned why I needed a designer bag I couldn't afford. I didn't tell him I'd opened a secret credit card to buy it, just like I didn't tell him about the reasons to leave document I'd started keeping. The crazy thing is, Caleb really tried. He got that certification I wanted him to get. Started dressing better when we went out with my friends. Even looked into some investment opportunity his coworker told him about. But it was too little, too late. I'd already seen what was possible for my friends' relationships, and Caleb's improvements weren't matching the vision I had. Our fights got worse in year 4, more frequent, more personal, until that final, fatal morning. That's when Julian came into the picture. I met him at a bar where I'd gone alone, not ready to admit to anyone that I was now that sad, divorced woman drinking by herself on a Friday night. He was good-looking in that polished way Caleb never quite managed. Tailored suit, expensive watch, perfect haircut. When he bought me a drink and asked what I did, I may have exaggerated my job title a bit. When he mentioned he was in finance, I didn't ask too many questions. I just imagined how he'd look standing next to me in photos. Our relationship moved fast. Julian checked all the boxes Caleb didn't. 6-figure income, corner office, luxury condo. He took me to the kind of restaurants where they don't put prices on the menu. He bought me the designer things I used to have to hide on a secret credit card. For the first time, I was posting real glamour shots on Instagram, not carefully angled fakes. But something was off. Julian was always on his phone, even during dinner. He'd cancel plans last minute for work emergencies, and when we were together, he didn't listen the way Caleb had. He'd ask a question, then check his email before I finished answering. Still, I was determined to make it work. This was the lifestyle I'd always wanted, even if the man who came with it wasn't quite as attentive as I'd hoped. I started making more effort, dressing up for dinner at home, planning weekend getaways, trying to recreate the relationship I'd had with Caleb, but with the lifestyle Julian provided. 3 months in, Julian invited me to a work event. Finally, a chance to show off my successful boyfriend to the world. I spent days shopping for the perfect dress, hours getting ready. When we arrived at the fancy hotel ballroom, I was ready to shine. But Julian kept introducing me as his friend. Not girlfriend, friend. Like we were casual acquaintances, not sleeping together for months. When I confronted him at the bar, he seemed surprised by my reaction. "We're having fun, Vivienne. But let's not get ahead of ourselves," he said casually, his eyes already scanning the room for someone more important to talk to. "Ahead of ourselves? It's been 3 months." He gave me a patronizing smile. "And it's been great. But my career is my priority right now. I thought you understood that. I'm not asking for a proposal, Julian. Just some basic respect. Look, you're a beautiful woman, Vivienne. Great company. But if you're looking for something serious, I don't think I'm your guy." Just like that. After 3 months, expensive dinners, weekends away, I was great company, but not worth committing to. And the worst part? I couldn't even be that mad? Because wasn't that exactly what I'd done to Caleb? Enjoyed the parts of him I found valuable, while making it clear he wasn't quite meeting my standards. The next day, I went through my phone and deleted all the pictures of Julian and me. I stopped myself from posting some cryptic breakup message on Instagram. What would be the point? No one was following my story anymore. My so-called friends had moved on. Caleb had moved on. I was sitting in my living room, our living room, still with the furniture Caleb and I had picked out together when I got a text from Sloane. "Heard about you and Julian. Want to grab coffee? I think we're overdue for a talk." Sloane, who'd been my friend before any of the others, who'd introduced me to Caleb, who'd tried to talk to me when things first went bad. I wanted to ignore her, to hold on to my anger, but I was so tired of being alone. "Fine," I texted back. "Tomorrow at 10. When I saw her at the coffee shop, she hugged me tight, like she was genuinely happy to see me. We made small talk for a while, catching up on work, mutual friends. Then she took a deep breath. "I saw Caleb last week," she said. "He asked about you." My heart stuttered. "What did he say?" "He wanted to know if you were okay. Said he heard through the grapevine about Julian." "And what did you tell him?" "That I hadn't talked to you in a while, but that I was planning to." She hesitated. "He's doing well, Vivienne. Started his own business. The one he used to talk about. Seems happy." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride, regret, jealousy. "Good for him," I said, and I mostly meant it. "Look, I didn't ask you here to talk about Caleb," Sloane said. "I wanted to check on you. The Vivienne I'm seeing on social media lately doesn't seem like the friend I've known for years." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you used to care about more than status and money. You used to value people for who they were, not what they could give you or how they made you look." She reached across the table. "What happened, V?" I wanted to be defensive, to tell her she didn't understand, but I was so tired of pretending. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice breaking. "Somewhere along the way, I got so caught up in keeping up with everyone else that I forgot to appreciate what I had. It's not too late to change that, she said gently. It is with Caleb, I said, and was surprised by how much that hurt to admit. Maybe, she said, but it's not too late for you. For figuring out what actually makes you happy, instead of what you think should make you happy. I thought about that on the drive home. About the reasons to leave document I'd been keeping on Julian, too, though I'd never admitted that to anyone. About how empty my apartment felt despite all the things I'd filled it with. About Caleb's face when I told him he wasn't a man I'd brag about. When I got home, I pulled out the divorce papers. I still hadn't signed, not because I thought there was a chance Caleb would come back, but because signing them meant admitting I'd failed, that I'd thrown away something real for something that looked good on Instagram. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another picture of Brielle and her husband on vacation. Another luxury car. Another perfect life. I stared at it for a long moment, then did something I'd never done before. I unfollowed her. Then Ainsley. Then every account that made me feel like my life wasn't enough. It wasn't much. It wasn't going to bring Caleb back or make my friends forgive me or erase the words I couldn't take back. But it was a start. A tiny acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the problem had never been with them at all.